Hello everyone, back to you in today's first video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days in today's first video, and we've had some very interesting model updates overnight. You'll remember in yesterday's video we had the idea of an easterly with the E70UF, but the GFS said no. Overnight it looks like the GFS is starting to shift more in that direction. So now we've got both the E70UF and the GFS suggesting a chance of the winds going into the east next week. So we could actually be on the start of quite a prolonged cold spell. We're certainly going to get the cold snap, which starts tomorrow and goes through to the end of the week. Might get a little bit milder over the weekend, and then after that, will the wind go into the east? That will be the big question. I'm going to show you all the detail in a second. Later on, we are going to have another snow watch. I said we won't do another snow watch until Wednesday, tomorrow, but things have been upgraded a little bit as well in terms of snow for the latter part of this week. So I'm going to show you that with snow watch this evening. So a lot going on today. Before I get on with that, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. If you have a browser widget, click through the links, you'll be happy to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. I better rush through everything that is going on. So we'll start off with 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the PSU website. We've got the E70UF here on the top, and the GFS, have a look at it in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure, low pressure being drowned by a jet stream running above. Red separates high pressure and blue to low pressure. So we can see that we've got above average heights centred to the north of the country and to the northeast as well. That's high pressure up there. And then underneath it with the E70UF, we've got this trough across central and western, southwestern parts of Europe. And that is turning the winds into the east. So this is telling us as we get through to this 7 to 10 day time frame, E70UF is very much going now for the idea of an easterly, and the area is coming from quite a long way east as well, so that would be pretty cold easy. Notice this trough down here. We've moved the heights out of Spain. We've been talking about that quite a bit recently. Got to get the heights out of Spain. The E70UF is doing that, taking the high pressure away from Spain, developing low pressure through the Mediterranean and southwestern parts of Europe, which allows the blocking to get going to the north. That's an easterly. If you have a look at the GFS, it's very similar, but still slightly different. So we've still got that trough there through the Mediterranean. The difference really is with the ridge. It's not quite as far north and northeast as the E70UF. It's more centred around sort of the UK and Germany, probably still bringing in an easterly flow more or less, but you need to get that high pressure just a little bit further north. But it has moved a lot, the GFS, overnight, in favour of turning wind into the east through the course of next week. So now the GFS ensemble sort of very split from very early on. So these are the upper air temperatures. Red line here is 30-year upper air temperature average. We're above average at the moment, but we're going colder to the end of the week. We're going to get the cold snap. As I say, I'll be doing Snow Watch tonight, discussing the chance of snow coming in with that. And then it's from this period just here, which is the end of the weekend into the start of next week. That's when the uncertainty is. You'll notice there are still several members of the GFS ensembles that are quite mild through this period, several members that are cold, and a few that are dropping into the freezer with bitterly cold easterly winds. So with so much scatter, it's hard really to say which way this is going to go, but definitely we can say the trend is to be turning things cold, because yesterday, if you saw yesterday's video, you remember there was fairly good agreement really to be lifting the trend up above average, not ever so strongly above average, but ever so slightly above average. Now you see that the trend is more on the colder than average side. There are more members that are keeping it cold into next week than there are going mild. So the trend of the model, the ensembles, is shifting in a colder direction. So that's not to guarantee that we will go in that direction, that we will have cold weather extending into next week, which will make for quite a prolonged cold spell, of course, rather than a little cold snap, as we was looking at yesterday. But if the trend is moving in that direction, then obviously that has to be the favoured option. Precipitation, you'll notice that with this cold snap coming up just here, we have got precipitation showing up there, so there will be a mix of rain, sleet and snow around. Got a bit of a headache for Thursday actually down in the south with a little shortwave running through the channel. It may well engage a cold air and produce a little bit of snow for the southern part of the country on Thursday. Elsewhere, we're looking at snow showers. We might set up some snow streamers through the Cheshire Gap. Anyway, I'll be talking about all of that tonight with Snow Watch. Beyond that, as we get through into this part of the onslaught, which is very uncertain, looks like the rain's coming back more definitively towards the end of the month, I should say, for precipitation. But I think that is so uncertain that it's best not to think about that too much. Temperature anomalies for the next week are beginning to trend colder. Look at this, going a little bit colder than average for England and Wales. Most parts of Europe still looking colder than average as well. Poor old Scandinavia still coming out significantly milder than average up there. If we get this easterly locking in with model output over the next few days, expect these charts to trend increasingly cold. Precipitation anomalies looking like this, near normal to a little bit drier than average. So this is a midnight run of the GFS. This is for Saturday when we're bringing down still that cold northwesterly flow, and there is a trough moving in there. You can see that with the elongation in the isobars just here. There's a trough trying to displace that cold air over the weekend. So got a bit of a question mark about Saturday. I think we will bring in more persistent precipitation. Will that be rain or will that be snow? It will very much depend how the air masses get mixed up on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the idea from the midnight run was to build a ridge across the country within still relatively cold air. And then going into the start of next week, what the GFS wanted to do is have this area of high pressure just taking over across many northern western parts of Europe. Now, it didn't get up to Scandinavia with this high pressure, so for Scotland actually we bring up a milder southwesterly. For England and Wales, it's probably still quite cold and frosty. And then that takes us to day 10, where we are very, very close at that point to a Scandinavian high and easy. In fact, I think mean flow is in from the east. It's just a very light and slack sort of easterly flow. But it is very close to having that high pressure over Scandinavia and turning winds into the east. Now, the 6 o'clock run of the GFS is even more impressive. So I'm going to go back and show you the run from 96 hours. This is Saturday in the morning. So this is 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Again, we're bringing some sort of trough in from the west. There it is, showing that trough is trying to bring in milder air off the Atlantic. Still got the cold air established from the northerly ahead of it. So that's going to produce a question mark as to what's going to happen on Saturday. On Sunday, we're still trying to clear that trough through. So there's the elongation in the isobars just there, showing where the trough is. It's just on the eastern side of the country. This is the mild air coming in from the Atlantic, of course. All of this ahead of it. It's going to be cold. Question marks then for the weekend as to whether we have rain, sleet or snow. Probably will turn a little bit less cold anyway over the weekend. And then into next week, we build this ridge through the country. And this time, we start to get it up towards Scandinavia as opposed to Central Europe. So by Tuesday, I've got an area of high pressure over Scandinavia. The wind is already going into the east. And of course, got a lot of cold air sitting across central parts of Europe. And then into the start of into the middle of next week, I should say, what happens is that we pull in this easterly wind with the Scandinavian high. There it comes, easterlies properly coming in across the country, and that does look pretty cold with those easterlies moving through. I have to say that's a proper easterly scenario, and the air would be quite bitter with that one. And then the GFS, so this is again on Saturday, bring down that northerly. As we run beyond that, we find the ridge building in across the country. Very similar what the GFS is doing. Ridge builds in over the weekend into the start of next week, and then it starts to move up to Scandinavia. There it goes on Tuesday to Wednesday. The wind's properly going into the east, dragging in probably cold air, and well, we'll definitely be dragging in cold air, and probably dragging in snow showers from the east with those easterly winds. And that continues in towards the latter stages of next week. The ridge does start to drift down across England and Wales, so we cut off the easterly, still be very cold. and very frosty by that point. The risk of snow would ease off, but that's too far away to be worrying about in any case. So it looks like the trend is definitely going towards easterly winds through the early and middle part of next week. We're going to have to wait and see whether that is maintained. But certainly today, as it stands, looks like we are heading into a fairly prolonged cold spell. Or we could be heading into a fairly prolonged cold spell. CFS V2 for the next month, looking like this. These are 500 millibar high dominant flow charts, taking us from the 10th through the 16th. These are broken down to week periods, of course. We've got the trough here, central parts of Europe. The ridge is out to the west, and that's slowly placing us on the cold side of the jet stream. So that one is gradually turning colder. Week 2, which goes from the 17th through 23rd of January. Look at this, got above average heights to the north of Scotland, going to Scandinavia. Low pressure underneath it. That will be bringing winds in from the east. So the CFS is also moving increasingly towards easterlies through the middle part of January, which could be bitterly cold. Week 4, which is the 24th to the 30th of January, we start to get that high pressure centering around Greenland. There's low pressure underneath it. That could be very snowy. We've got the jet stream probably doing something like that. So we are placed on the cold side of the jet. This trough would, of course, be providing precipitation. That could be really windy. So we could be looking at 2 or 3 weeks of really quite cold weather, a couple of weeks of really quite cold and wintry conditions. And then week 4, this one looks milder. So we build the ridge over onto the eastern side of Europe. Then low pressures recentering to the north and west of the country, flows going back round into the Atlantic. So that from the 31st of January to 6th of February would bring, or start to bring, milder conditions through and a thaw. Temperature anomalies with CFS V2 coming out a little bit colder than average this week, 10th to 16th, and then significantly colder than average from the 17th to the 23rd. Notice many parts of Europe as well coming out very, very cold through that middle part of January. Week 3, which is the 24th to the 30th of January, still looks a bit cold on average for England and Wales. Cold is lessening, but still probably cold enough for snow. But by week 4, it has turned milder then. So getting to of February, and the CFS is looking at a bit of a warmer spell and a thaw taking place. Will we get that, though? These are the experimental 500 millibar height anomalies from the NASA model, the experimental NASA model. This is 500 millibar height anomaly for January. And for January, it wants to place this ridge out to the north and the west of the country with low pressure underneath it. That would leave us with a mean flow somewhere from the east or the northeast. For February, it's placing above average heights around to the north of Scotland, going over towards Scandinavia. That will have us in an easterly. So the temperature anomalies for January are coming out colder than average across most parts of the country. Scotland is still forecast to be a bit milder than average, but don't worry too much about that if you live in the north. Those are very short distances to be too concerned about. I think generally we would have a colder than average month, January, if it came off as model is predicting. And February also is being predicted to come out colder than average, as it is for most parts of Europe. So the NASA model is seeing quite a cold January and a cold February as well. So obviously that would deliver us into a colder than average winter, which would be pretty good news with regards to its winter forecast, which wasn't looking all that good in December. But we'll worry about February closer to the time frame. Let's concentrate on this northerly first of all. So we're going to get the northerly starting tomorrow. We'll all be in the northerly by Thursday and Friday. But it's a northwesterly, but then it turns northerly by Friday. Into weekend, a lot of question marks about that. Atlantic is going to have a go at bringing some milder air in, so fun and games there. And then we get through into the start of next week, and it really will be a case of all eyes on whether we build that high pressure up over Scandinavia, get the winds into the east. If we do, we could start to drag in snow showers to the south and the east of the country, and it would be a fairly prolonged cold spell, certainly lasting a week of cold weather if we get that build of pressure over Scandinavia. So, very, very interesting story. Obviously, we'll keep you posted at Gazzovids over the next few days. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.